Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here, welcome for the first time. My name is Dr. Kate Boyd. I'm a professor of piano at Butler University in Indianapolis, and this is my teaching studio. This month I am practicing through the Beethoven Sonatas for violin and piano, or piano and violin as they're actually called by Beethoven, and I am doing one movement per day this month for the first 24 days of December. I am going to work today on Sonata No. 2, and we're going to look at the third movement. The tempo marking is Allegro piacevole. So there's our first takeaway right there. Allegro piacevole is quite an unusual tempo marking, and what it actually means is allegro, which we know to be fast, but piacevole means pleasant or enjoyable. So he's kind of giving a character designation as well as a tempo designation. So he wants it to be an enjoyable or pleasant allegro. There's a lot of stuff happening in this very first melodic idea. We start off with a little snappy dotted rhythm, and then a little staccato on beat 2, and then a syncopation, which means a note that's kind of emphasized on a weak beat. So it's got a kind of swung quality to it, a little bit dance-like. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then the violin comes in with an answer to that. We have a few little arpeggios in this movement, and that's what we practice arpeggios for, are moments like these when we can kind of wheel them out. Now, sometimes people play arpeggios and they twist. You can see that doesn't work when they're fast. That's why I always say, instead of twisting, you should close the hand a little bit, tuck, and then just pass right over. And he's putting sforzandi on the third beat of the measure. We talked about that in an earlier video where we talked about how a sforzando doesn't have to be harsh or sharp. He's not saying, right? You can hear how that sounds really disproportionately harsh. He wants it to be playful. He wants it to be a little bit off kilter. And we would expect the downbeat, the first beat, to be strong. And so without the sforzando, it would sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But he's saying 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And by doing that, it's almost sounding like a country dance, or like somebody stomping on the wrong beat, on the weak beat. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we have the same melody return. You could see that I had things in the left hand like this. A very accompanimental line, and then the violin and the piano are 1 octave apart. So I'm playing this, but I'm 1 octave below the violin during that whole time. Then we swap, and then I am 1 octave above the violin. etc. I'm going to move ahead through this piece. And this is kind of a short movement. It's one of the shorter sonatas as well. It's really nice, that little enjoyable opening theme comes back several times throughout because we're in rondo form. And then the theme, this one comes back again, just like we talked about, but in a different key. And then we come to the end, and I'll play a little bit of that. Basically what this is ending, right? And the violin is playing, and then underneath that I have, and then it kind of sounds like it's ending. And then we have a little kind of tag or a coda with that little ornament, with the arpeggio that we liked earlier in the piece. And that's the whole movement right there. I want to tell you a little bit about this thing that's called a hemiola. And a hemiola, yes, I did not make up that word. It is an actual descriptive word for something in music. This music is in 3. So we're counting it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then what happens here is it sounds like it goes into 2 beats per measure. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You could also count it in 4. You could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's more in 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A hemiola is just when the music sounds like it's in a different meter than it is actually written in. And when I say meter, I mean time signature. So it sounds like the time signature changes, but the time signature doesn't literally change. It's a way of writing that makes it sound like just for a few measures, it goes into a different beat pattern. I want to show you one more thing in this piece. It's in measure 24. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the art of collaborative playing, because that's really what I'm doing here in this project. Obviously, I'm not practicing. These are not solo sonatas. And you have always to consider the violin part, the bass part, and the accompaniment part, and the solo part if it's in the piano. Always looking for those 3 components of the texture. Sometimes the violin has accompanimental figures, and sometimes the piano does. I'm looking at measure 2, 3, 4, 5, measure 25, because we have the violin has the melodic line that started the piece, right? And then my left hand has the bass. So between the 2 of them, it sounds kind of complete. Especially if it was down 1 octave. Sounds like that could be a piano melody right there. But the violin is up here, then there's the bass supporting the melody. But in the middle of the texture, we have all these running notes in the right hand. It would be so easy for those to be too loud, because they're moving notes and they're also in a part of the piano register that is actually quite strong. So I have to be careful not to go. Instead, that part is the least important part of the texture. We have to hear it shaped, have to hear it going up and down. But it has to be very much inside the sound that we make between the violin and the left hand part. So a lot of these balance issues we're going to handle when we rehearse together, but as I'm learning each and every one of these movements, I'm considering the texture. I'm looking to see, am I doubling the violin? Do I have different material? Do I have the solo line? Do I have accompanimental line? Now, contrary to what we understand today about when instruments play with piano, a lot of times we consider the pianist to be a default accompanist. But in fact, when these were written, Beethoven titled these sonatas for piano and violin. I can show you right here. Sonatas for piano and violin. And at the time he wrote these, the idea of a sonata was still pretty much focused on the piano. And so Beethoven himself was known to refer to his sonatas for violin and piano as piano sonatas with violin obbligato, implying that the violin kind of had a supplementary or accompanimental role. Now, of course, I don't consider the violin to be my accompanist, nor do I consider myself to be the violin's accompanist. What we're doing here is we're creating a very equal playing relationship, which you will see when Justine comes to town later this month, and we will see what it's like when we start putting this together. But I wanted to share that with you so that you could see that even though I'm practicing all of these sonatas alone, I'm still looking at the texture. I'm looking at how the two parts are going to relate to each other. Now's the part of the video where I give you a little bit of an update on the day. Today is Wednesday, December 14th, and I am surrounded by holiday cheer. I had one student give me tea, and she gave me tea that is one kind of tea for every day of December, and so every day I get a little surprise for tea, and I'm a real tea freak, so that is a great present for me. And then I had another student give me chocolates, which is just delightful and completely unexpected. So students don't think that I'm expecting candy and tea, but I was just delighted to receive these gifts. It was nice. And I have this amaryllis here that's been slowly coming to life. I decided to put it on the piano because it's starting to get some color, and in a few days I hope it will bloom, and then you'll get to see it then. Thanks so much for practicing with me tonight. I'm going to see you tomorrow when I continue my work on the second sonata. See you then, and happy practicing.